Today, we're talking about what the basics of Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E are and what you need to know about them. Let's get into it. Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Adrian Reddix, and today we're talking about Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E. Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E are the new Wi-Fi standards that we are slowly adopting. Wi-Fi 6 is already here, and Wi-Fi 6E is slowly rolling out between now and the near future. Before we get into what Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E are, we have to get into a couple things as far as let's understand what it is, where did it come from, and things like that. So the first thing we need to discuss is standardization. The second thing we're going to discuss is what Wi-Fi 6 is. And then the third thing we're going to discuss is what Wi-Fi 6E is and what it does that improves on Wi-Fi 6. The first thing we need to unwrap when we're talking about Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E is standards or standardization. So the dictionary definition of standards is an idea or thing used as a measure, norm, or model in comparative evaluations. What does that mean? Why are standards important? Standards are important because think about if you have a light, I'm assuming that you have lights in your house or wherever you're watching this at. Let's just say that you had a socket and it was by GE, but you didn't have a GE light bulb within like a 50-mile radius. But only GE sockets worked with GE light bulbs. So you couldn't take it from Philips or what have you and use it there. When you have standards, you can have, you know that your socket is this measure, and that you can buy any of these products from any of these companies. As long as it has that certain thread or measure, you can use it, right? Same thing with the 3.5 millimeter jack. That has a standard because you can take your device, if your device has that jack, any device that has that 3.5 millimeter jack can go in. So that's what we have standards. So things can be interchangeable. More importantly, let's just say if something breaks, you have standards so you know that your replacement part is of the same standard as the part you're replacing. Let's say you have a device that only takes 10 volts of electricity, but your replacement part has 20 volts, and you put the 20 volt replacement part in place of the 10 volt. You can burn up whatever you're doing and you can mess it up. So having standardizations makes repair and usability much simpler. So that's where we get Wi-Fi 6 from the standardization organization called IEEE, the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers. The standard is called 802.11 and it came out around the mid 90s, right? And they kept doing iterations. So you have 802.11b, 802.11a, 802.11g, 802.11n, 802.11.ac, and what we're currently on, 802.11ax. Now, if you don't do this on a day-to-day basis, that can be very confusing. B, G, A, N, what do they all mean? What do they all do? Basically, each iteration got either faster, processed Wi-Fi connections better. That's pretty much what they were all doing, either making it faster or making a better experience. Another organization, they're not a standards organization, they're more of like a trade organization called the Wi-Fi Alliance, saw that for the average consumer, this got a little confusing. So around 2 to 3 years ago, the Wi-Fi Alliance, I think back in like 2017, 2018, decided to make the naming standards for the public a lot easier. So they went and named AX, so the latest version, the 802.11ax, Wi-Fi 6, and then backtracked all that. So all those iterations are now Wi-Fi 1, Wi-Fi 2, Wi-Fi 3, Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5, and what we're currently on, Wi-Fi 6, right? Some more standards that they do that you might find interesting are, two that come to mind are overhead fiber optics. You ever see these poles with these wires that aren't electrical, that are a little lower on the pole? Usually that's cable or internet. They'll tell you how big your fiber optic can be, how heavy it can be, because if you didn't have standardization, it could fall on you, hurt you, pull down the pole, what have you. Another thing they do is head-mounted display virtual reality, like sickness reduction. I don't know if you had the fortune of using VR back in the 90s, but it was a horrible experience. You had a bad eye strain and it just made you physically sick. So they come up with the standards on how to reduce your, I'm not gonna call it motion sickness, I'm gonna call it VR sickness, is what it is. What does Wi-Fi 6 do that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 didn't? It has a higher speed. It has around 1200 megabits per second. What you have to realize when it comes to Wi-Fi is there's theoretical output and input, and then there's real world output and input. So theoretically, hey, you could get these speeds, but factors include how well your router is performing, what kind of device you're connected to, what area it's in, how thick are the walls, how well the walls bounce your signal around. It's so many real world factors that affect speed on a day-to-day basis. Think about your internet right now. Your provider may say you have 25 megs down, and I can almost guarantee you almost never hit 25 megs down. It's just, hey, this is what it can do, not what it will do. So take that faster speed with a grain of salt. But more importantly, what's more important about Wi-Fi 6 as opposed to the other one is multi-user, multiple input, multiple output. What does that mean? That means more devices can connect to the router and not have a single stream of data. It has different channels. So let's say if it's the other iteration, it was one channel everything was going to. With this, with a multi-user, multiple input, multiple output, there's more than one input points on the router. So it's faster. It's not everything going through one node. You have a bunch of nodes that things can connect to. It's really speed and how it connects. So what Wi-Fi 6E does, it does three things. One, it opens up a new band for your devices. So the more bands you have, or the bigger your spectrum is, the faster you can get data to it, right? You can get gigabit speeds on Wi-Fi 6E. That means faster speed. You're getting to a point where if all the conditions are met, where wired infrastructure is looking less and less popular, you can have that same through world input as you have with wired connections. Well, now everything's starting to change now. So now you don't have to run cable everywhere. So why is that important? Let's say you're trying to build a building. A huge cost of that building is going to be wiring. Running wire everywhere isn't cheap. The cable itself is about what, $200-300 per 500 foot, $100 something per 500 foot. You got to have somebody come in to run it. You got to have it terminated. You have to have it all run into a switch. It's a lot of cost that comes with cable and infrastructure. What this could possibly do is eliminate that cost, where you can just put a couple APs up and run your network like that. That does come with its limitations and things like that. So what does that mean for the average consumer? Well, when you have faster speeds, you usually have lower latency. And for people who like gaming, especially gaming online, this helps with that. So the lower latency you have, the better you have. Let's say you're playing like a Call of Duty. Reaction time is a huge thing. So if you have a lower latency, you can see the person faster than you would at a normal connection, right? So that means you can pull your trigger faster. That means you can get a faster kill when you have lower latency and faster speeds. So what would faster Wi-Fi speeds help you do in your day-to-day life? Let me know in the comment section below. That's it. Thanks for joining me. If you like this type of video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like this type of video, give me a thumbs down. Tell me why you didn't like this type of video. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.